All right, we're going to combine a couple of lessons here for complex fractions, and we will see how this goes. So people freak out with these. I'm going to pre-tell you these are fractions within fractions. That's why they're called complex fractions, but there's no need to panic. They're going to look like this. Well, this is the most simple one. They're going to look a lot harder than this. But what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this. So we have to remember that fractions are just another way to write a division problem. And this middle line is going to be my fraction line. So I'm going to rewrite this. Instead of being on top of each other, I'm going to write them beside each other. And instantly that looks easier. So now I just simply follow my steps for dividing fractions, which means you keep the first, change the division sign to multiplication, and flip. Or if you had me a long time ago, flip the second and multiply. Keep, change, flip the second and multiply. And then I literally just multiply. 2 times 4, 3 times 3, 8 over 9. Now they're not all going to be that easy. These are actually going to get pretty intense. So we'll take the next couple of slides a little bit slower. But that's the main idea here. We're going to simplify our tops and our bottoms, and then we're going to just rewrite them out as a division problem. So this one is 1/2 divided by 3, and I wrote that 1/2 like that because on this program you could not tell where the fraction line was. In your textbook, the main fraction line is a little bit darker or longer. I don't remember now that I'm not looking at it. So I'm going to just rewrite this. I can't simplify 1/2 any further, and I can't simplify 3 any further. So I'm going to rewrite it as a division, and that should say 1/2, not 1/3. So here's what we're going to do, because my whole slide is made with a 3. So we're going to just pretend that this top number was 3. We're going to pretend that fraction was 1/3, okay? Sorry. So 1/3 divided by 3. Flip the second and multiply. So I have 1 over 1, or 1 times 1, 3 times 3, and I get 1/9. All right, so our first step is going to be to simplify. Second step, write it as a division problem. Third step, just do it. Now that previous one was an easy one. These are going to start getting a little bit more complex, all right? And there are some steps you need to kind of write down. And actually, I would go ahead and get paper and pencil if you don't have some and work these with me so you know what you are doing a little bit better. So, sorry, I'm so tired. Simplify what you can. I can't simplify 1/4 anymore, but I can simplify my bottom fraction by actually adding it. So when I'm adding, remember I have to have a common denominator. 5 and 2 can both become 10. So I multiply this whole fraction by 2 and multiply this whole fraction by 5. And let me erase that first arrow I had drawn there. I then end up with 6 over 10 plus 5 over 10. Then add those fractions on the bottom and rewrite it as division. This, I sort of did this in 2 steps. This equals 11 over 10. So write it out as a division problem once everything is completely simplified. Then I am going to keep, change, flip, or flip the second and multiply. I end up with 1/4 times 10 over 11. I end up then 1 times 10 is 10. 4 times 11 is 44. Reduce that to 5 over 22. So step 1, simplify what you can. Step 2, write it out as a division problem. Step 3, just do the division steps by keeping the first, changing division to multiplication, and then flip that second one. Make sure if you can reduce, make sure you reduce. So these are just going to get a little scarier as we go on. The first step is going to be to simplify anything that you can. And here's the thing, here is my top fraction. I can't do anything to that to simplify it. Here's my bottom fraction. I can't do anything to that to simplify it. So if I cannot simplify anything, then I'm going to just rewrite it as a division problem. To divide, I keep the first, change division to multiplication, flip the second. I'm going to kind of take some pauses and go slow so you can process all the words I say. As I yawn, sorry. All right, so I kept the first, changed to multiplication, and I flipped the second. And now I multiply. Now here's what you have to remember. This plus sign sticks all of this together. This is all stuck together. So when I multiply something like this, I have to use distributive property. That has to distribute to every piece. Okay, when you have that plus sign or a minus sign, everything is stuck together, which requires me to use distributive property. So if you're taking notes, write down distributive property. And I always write in my parentheses there so I can remember that that's stuck together. So after I distribute, I end up with 8x plus 2. On the bottom, I end up with 3x minus 9. And that cannot simplify. We'll have some later that will be able to simplify. But right now, or this one, it can't simplify at all. So that's it. So rewrite as division. Remember, when you have a plus or minus sign, you have to use distributive property if you have anything to multiply into it. All right, so let's look at this one. This is 2 divided by 3 over x plus 4. So this, and again, your textbook I think is a little easier to tell what's what. This is the main division line here, okay? So this is 2 divided by 3x plus 4. First thing I need to do is I need to see if I can simplify anything, and in this case I can simplify nothing. So I'm going to rewrite it side by side or horizontally. Now because we're dealing with fractions, that 2 needs to be put over 1 because I have to have fractions. All right, I have to divide, so in order to divide a fraction, I keep the first, flip the second, and multiply. Keep the first, flip the second, and multiply. Now, I'm going to just multiply, but I have to remember this is all stuck together. This one has no parentheses, so I literally have no addition sign, so I just do 1 times 3. But when I have that addition sign there, that's stuck together, so I have to use distributive property. So I have to take my 2 times 3x and my 2 times 4, which is going to give me 6x plus 8 over 3. This can't simplify, so that is my answer. All right, guys, this one is a lot. We're going to work through this. I'm going to suggest very largely that you write all of this down with me. I'm going to start by putting the problem up. I'll give you a second to write it down. The top is 3x plus 4 over x plus 1. The bottom is x minus 1, x squared minus 1. So write that down on your paper so you can work it out with me. First thing that we need to do is simplify. Now in this case, what I'm going to do to simplify this is I'm going to stretch everything out. Now here's what I mean by that. My top part is are 2 fractions I have to add. In order to add fractions, I have to have a common denominator. In order to find a common denominator, we're going to just simply multiply by each other. So remember a long time ago if we had like 1/7 plus 1/12 and none of us knew what 7 and 12 could just both become, we would just multiply it by each other. That's the same idea here. We're going to just simply multiply by the opposite denominator. And then on top of that, this is a perfect square, which means I need to spread all of that out. But instead of multiplying it all together like we did on the last one at the end, don't multiply anything together to the very end. Keep it all spread out, and you'll see why and what I mean. So let me show you what that looks like, and then I'll be quiet for a second so you can write it down. I'm going to just keep it written out as 3 times x plus 1, 4 times x 1 plus times x. So I'm going to keep it all stretched out. So this is the top. This is the bottom. That's written so messy. Let me clean some of this up. And I went ahead and spread it all out and rewrote it as a division problem, okay? So I went ahead and stretched out my factoring and wrote my common denominator process out. Now I'm going to flip the second, because that's how we divide fractions. Keep the first, flip the second. Let you get caught up for a second in your notes. At this point now, we can cancel some things out, but I need you to remember again, this is one whole unit. Nothing can cancel out of here because of this plus sign. That is all stuck together. However, the rest of this stuff is multiplication, so I can cancel x plus 1, x plus 1, x minus 1, x minus 1. This x plus 1 can't cancel because it's stuck inside that set with that plus sign, okay? So only cancel what's outside of those plus signs. All right? Then what's left is the 3x plus 1 plus 4 that was in those parentheses that we couldn't separate. And then on the bottom we have an x. Now we're going to multiply things in together. So now we're going to multiply this. After we cancel, we'll multiply things in. Which will give us 3x plus 3 plus 4. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 1 is 3. And then there's my plus 4. And then at this point, I'm going to add any like terms, all right? So I have a x and an x. That becomes 7x plus 3 over x. So that's a lot. Like, there's a lot in these. Those first ones were not terribly hard. You're just simplifying, flipping, and multiplying. These kind, you're going to need to spread everything out, flip, cancel, and then really I should have typed in right here multiply. So step 1, spread everything out. Step 2, flip the second. Step 3, cancel out. Step 4, multiply. Let's look at one more. All right. Write this one on your paper. And let's work through this one. So really, I probably should write this down over here. You need to figure out what, I don't know why I wrote an L. What would your common denominator be? So you're going to pretend you're finding a common denominator. And because I can't really sit here and process through x plus 2, I'm going to just multiply them by each other. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. And over here I need the x. Whatever to the bottom, do to the top. And remember, we're not actually going to multiply anything out. We're going to just keep it all written, spread out. At the same time, this is a perfect square. So watch for any factoring that you can do. So I spread that whole top out with those common denominators. And then I wrote it as a horizontal problem divided by all of that, and I factored out that bottom piece. I'm going to give you a second to catch that up. All right, we're going to keep the first, flip the second, and multiply. Gosh, that's crammed in there pretty close. Sorry, that may be hurting your eyeballs. Keep the first, flip the second, change to multiply. So we spread it out. We kept the first, changed the sign to multiply, flipped the second. Now we're going to cancel. Remember, this is all stuck together. I can't do anything with that really. And really the only thing that will cancel here is this x plus 1 and this x plus 1. Now there is an x plus 2 and an x plus 2 that looks like they could cancel, but that is stuck together with the plus sign, so it won't cancel. I can't pull it out if it's stuck with a plus sign. So what I'm left with is all of this loveliness. 4x plus 2 is distributed out 4x plus 8 plus 3x. And then on the bottom, I really should have gone ahead and distributed this, but I do that in my next step. Because after you cancel is when you multiply, okay? Let me actually put those back in. Now I can simplify remember, order of operations, we start inside of our parentheses. So if I can simplify inside, I need to do that first. So 4x plus 3x is 7x. And now I'm going to use distributive property. I'm going to multiply my 7 to both pieces, my 8 to both pieces, x to both pieces. I end up with 7x times x is 7x squared. 7x times negative 1 is negative 7. 8 times x is 8x. 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. Not quite done because I have another like term right here that I can add, and actually I need to keep that negative with it. So negative 7x plus 8x is going to give me 7x squared plus x minus 8 over blah, 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 blah. And that whole thing is your answer. And I think you only have 2 of these really big ones on your homework. Just take them a step at a time. Spread everything out. Keep, change, flip. Cancel what you can. And then your last step will be to multiply back together whatever you can. Okay? Your homework is going to be, I know it's 3 pages, but there's only a couple of problems on each page, okay? 191, 193, 195.